Okay, welcome everyone. Come on in, plenty of seats, filter in. Thank you for coming today. My name is Preston Holmes. I am a product manager focused on Duet. I'll be introducing my co-speaker, Vijay Krishnan from Turing in a few minutes. And we're here to tell you all about some of the details in Duet. Now, many of you probably saw some of this in the keynote. We're going to try to click into a few more of the interactions and show you what we have today and available for you to go try and sign up for preview at any minute. The blog post and our web pages have those sign-up links. So again, this whole conference, you're going to hear a little bit of repetition about where we are with AI. I think it's important to recognize that these products are still being built on essentially a moving train of innovation. So what you see today in Duet is going to sort of climb this ladder from 2023 and beyond, right? What we have today is just the beginning. And the other thing I'll point out is that while at Google there are these core R&D resources, we fundamentally have two different areas where we're exposing generative AI. One to our large consumer base, and the other is to our enterprise and business users. And within that, we have the two areas of Vertex and Duet. And really the way I summarize this is Vertex is a platform for you all to be a producer of value using generative AI in your own products and services. And Duet is a place for you to consume the value of us spending that time and effort building generative AI into our products and services. So if I were to look at a sort of typical pitch slide for Vertex and where you can use Vertex today, it is really in any cloud vertical or industry, or any business that you can imagine. You have consumers who want to benefit from an easier or more intelligent experience. And what we've done at Google Cloud is recognize that we are in a business, and that business is cloud services. And so we have customers trying to use and be more effective in cloud. So when you look at a generative AI solution, it's going to involve, back here. And we've done this because we recognize that cloud continues to not be very simple. I mean, I've personally been in the public cloud space about 10 years, and I know that while we continue to make some things easier, we continue to add more products and more services. We have over 100 in Google Cloud Platform itself, and so new people, new employees at your own companies are constantly looking at a new set of challenges to solve on cloud. And so how can we make that easier? And so with Duet AI, we're really reimagining the way you interact with the cloud interfaces we provide you. This includes things like the IDE for developers or our own cloud console, specialized data interaction services, security products, et cetera. And Duet AI today, while it covers a portion of Google Cloud's products and services, really in the fullness of time would be the entire GCP experience. You'd have Duet following you along throughout it. And so when you look at any generative AI solution, it's literally sort of built on a stack of capabilities, and that's what we have done here. So we've started with Google's own research and development models, such as PaLM 2. We are then using some of our high-performance platform infrastructure in Vertex to do the model tuning and serving. We've then taken our industry information and informed the model with additional context of GCP. So this includes things like our documentation, our client libraries, our sample code. This is now becoming an expert system for GCP. In the future, our next step is to allow you to bring your own enterprise and organizational fine-tuning to these models and make it truly your own specific instance of Duet. And then finally, the last mile matters. The user experience is something we've put a lot of investment in for Duet to make sure that it's intuitive and easy to use out of the box. This is not something that you need to be any kind of an AI expert to take away the value of Duet. So let's go through a couple of these sort of principles of what we're looking to build long term. First is, we try to infuse the context of what you're working on directly into the model's awareness. Today, this is specifically around the code that you're working on, or perhaps the data tables you're working with. But there is a sort of a vast amount of additional context we're going to be able to inform the model of over time. This is integrated into the platform interfaces and experiences. This isn't something that is bolted on or you have to switch to a different tab to use. We really want to then move to making this more agent-based over time, right? So that not only will you be able to kind of get the expert advice and guidance and suggestions that you can today, but you can work with Duet to make plans of action to manage and operate your services more collaboratively. And finally, most uses of cloud involve some longer journeys. Let's say you're going to migrate a set of services to the cloud. This isn't something you do and sit down and do in 1 hour session. This is a journey that you want Duet to go with you along the whole journey. All right, so today we pretty much have Duet available in these sort of 5 primary areas in GCP. This includes assisted development, assisted operations, assisted data, assisted no-code development, and assisted security. And I'll be walking through each of these. So let's start with assisted development. And we're going to imagine Sam, who's a developer, a software engineer at a commercial website, and he's using Visual Code. He's relatively new to Google Cloud, so he's familiar with the development he wants to achieve, but he's still new to Google. And really, we have these 2 primary ways in which he can interact with Duet. The first is as a pair programmer doing code completion and code suggestions directly in line as he's writing code in his editor. And the other is through an interactive chat component in the IDE. So as he's writing code, Duet will auto-suggest completions of functions. It'll suggest things like imports into your IDE. It will help take comments you might write in code and turn those into fully implemented functions. And it's specifically good at knowing GCP services, right? So the accuracy is even higher when it comes to using our own APIs because of the specialized tuning we've done. Things in languages where the IDE doesn't do it for you, such as auto-importing modules, is something that, depending on the language, Duet can do for you. And lastly, this idea of being more productive as a developer isn't always about writing the code. It's often about understanding the code base you're being dropped into on a new project. So there are lots of projects where the complexity of the code is the first developer problem to solve, like understanding what came before you. And so you can now highlight code and ask Duet to explain it to you in plain English. And we are also releasing, as part of our initial release, the ability to do things that are pure toil for most developers, such as writing unit tests. I really don't know any developer who thinks that writing unit tests is the favorite part of the job. Now, one of the things we're doing throughout generative AI at Google is trying to help provide visibility and tie back to where we understand the generative AI has learned something it is suggesting. For code, that means when there's a specific enough literal match to a generated snippet, we highlight the original training source and the licenses associated with that training data. This gives you the sort of attestation you need to apply your own decisions about how you're managing generated code or license management, and lets you go back and double check whether or not you want to use something, say, that we found on a web page or from a repo that had no license attached to it. And this gives you sort of an ability to trust what code you're using from generative AI directly in your projects. So to talk a little bit more about Duet AI assisted development, I'm going to bring Vijay on stage to talk about his work at Turing.
Great. Thank you, Preston. Let me first tell you what we do at Turing. So at Turing, we have helped over 1,000 companies and particularly 100 large enterprises, and we help companies in 2 different ways. One is we help companies with fully managed software projects, and the other thing we help companies with is building remote distributed teams of pre-vetted developers. So our talent cloud allows rapid scaling of high-quality teams, and this is chiefly possible as a result of 3 factors. First, we have a really large planetary pool of software developers, over 2 million software developers from 100 plus countries in every possible time zone and country imaginable. Second, we thoroughly test developers in technical skills in various tech stacks, programming skills, soft skills, and leadership skills, and so on. This, in turn, allows us to build a very detailed profile of developers. It allows us to build good machine learning algorithms to find the right developer for various jobs. And needless to say, because we have cast such a wide net, we cover every possible skill stack, industry domain, etc. Possible. But that said, team building is one part of what of the goal. The ultimate goal, of course, is to ensure that we are able to produce a lot of value for our clients at the lowest possible costs, and that's where Duet comes in. So at Turing, we constantly aspire to help our software development teams produce the maximum value for our clients. And toward this particular end, we've been doing a mixture of both build and buy, where we have been looking at the best tools out there in the market that can help software developer teams produce more. And we have also been looking closely at various things we should be building ourselves that the market is not organically producing. So over here, it was helpful that we started with the GCP workstation, because that meant we could effectively operate within Google's environment, profit from all the functionality at our disposal. The result has been that our developers have loved what they have seen in terms of the autocomplete and what it does to their specific productivity. And our developers have also anecdotally reported that they love the chat interface and what that does for them by way of their productivity. But that said, we wanted to put a concrete number on this. Like we want to, over time, be the place where our developers are producing more and more value per unit time, and that's why we subjected this to a more specific measurement. So we ran an experiment with the Duet, and this is one of the few experiments that we cite here, but all our different experiments have more or less yielded similar results, where we directly measured pull request merges and saw a 33% increase in as a result of Duet AI. And our experiments are also fairly representative, because we have a team of software developers that do various different things. We have, we have people doing front-end, back-end, mobile app development, data scientists, machine learning engineers, everything. So this is a nicely representative pool of software developers, and tells us what Duet can do. One more thing for which we see some early evidence that we are trying to better quantify also is the importance of training and the additional productivity lift that comes when developers fully understand what these tools can do for them. So there's a certain kind of productivity gain one might achieve with typical use. Like suppose the developers were to continue coding on a certain day the way they were coding the day before, there's a certain lift one can hope to achieve through, but obviously changes in coding behavior, like writing a more detailed comment and allowing the tool to generate more code for you, or using the chat functionality more widely. All these things are behavioral changes that could lead to even larger gains. So we are also actively engaged in training our developer pool to most effectively leverage these tools. So as for what's next at Turing, we are certainly taking a look at code base indexing and debugging, and yeah, both of these we expect will push us further along toward our goal of AI accelerated delivery, as well as our goal to improve developer search and recommendation capabilities. Back to you, Preston.
Thank you, Vijay. Thanks for your partnership in helping us develop Duet. It was immensely helpful. So we're going to be continuing to move pretty quickly here because we've got a lot more to show about what Duet can do already today in GCP. And we're going to talk now about assisted operations. Now, ops as a term, I want you to understand that anyone who's using any product in the console in this sense is really somebody who's operating GCP. This isn't strictly limited to those who might be in sort of the classic ops side of a DevOps type definition. This is really something that we think can help across many uses in our console today for all GCP products. And so the first is really like understanding in a quick and in-context way what our products can do, how they are configured, how to use them. This is essentially bringing the vast information embedded in entire documentation into the console and summarizing just what you need when you need it. And then the other is to help bring more curated experiences for how to best act on certain recommendations or debugging type situations in the console. So let's go through these pretty quickly. Now, this is in some ways maybe the simplest feature of Duet AI, but it is perhaps one of its most powerful, which is that I think all of us have worked with technical products where at the time you're trying to figure something out, you realize you need to answer a question for yourself that's probably somewhere in the documentation. And so you leave the experience where you are setting something up and you have to go off and find which page in the documentation has the answer, or even which section in the documentation page has the answer, and maybe it's actually spread across several different pages. So with Duet AI, you can simply ask your question in plain English, and we will summarize and give you in some bullet point form exactly what it is you need to know or what you maybe need to do. And that is an incredible time saver. The other is that we have right in our console an interactive CLI environment called Cloud Shell, and Duet can suggest to you certain actions or commands to perform in that shell environment while still retaining whatever context you have in the rest of the console. The other is that Duet can help look across things like a given log entry, help you understand what is happening from a given set of error text. So we have the ability to look at log line explanations. You can do further investigation. And because the Duet model is not simply based only on GCP knowledge, but it is based on a general purpose large language model, you can extend this into other errors such as, tell me something about an HTTP error code. Tell me about something around even a third-party product where maybe you're integrating or sending data from. For example, here, if I'm looking at error codes, in this case, I have a recurring error with something wrong with my use of the Twilio API, right? And so here I'm getting a suggestion of how to potentially fix that error that I'm seeing in my cloud error reporting screen. Let's look at assisted data. Now, I'll tell you something. I've been a technical practitioner in various times in my role in cloud, and I'm still not very good at SQL. I can sort of eke around with it. So I'm personally very excited about this feature, right? So as a data analyst, maybe a junior data analyst, or maybe somebody new to a certain sort of data set, how can I have Duet help accelerate my sort of time to the task that I'm trying to achieve in something like BigQuery? And so here, when I mentioned that we're providing Duet context, the context we're really making available is what data sets are you working with, which ones are available, and what schema, column names, and data types are in those tables, which means that when I'm asking Duet to sort of suggest a completion for me for SQL, it's doing so in a syntax-accurate way that knows about my data. And so again, it's having that same type of IDE-like type-ahead auto-suggestion for you directly in the BigQuery console. Now, it can also use natural language. So I may not know, for example, I might know what types of business entities are in my data set, but I'm not sure exactly which tables or which columns those are in. I'm trusting that the column names probably are similar enough to what I'm looking for. So the ability to write in plain English what type of query I'm looking for and have it just simply generate whole cloth the SQL I need to find that information is something that's incredibly useful for somebody who maybe is not working with that particular data set day in and day out. And I can use iteration in the sense of continuing to evolve that query and refine it over time. And that's really how we think about Duet as a collaborator. This isn't simply going to do the final job for you. It's helping you achieve the job even faster. And lastly, if I'm working with a team and somebody else, you can save queries and reuse them in BigQuery. So if I'm using a shared project where somebody else has written a query and I don't quite know how to understand what that query is doing, I can ask Duet to explain that to me in plain English. And so this idea of working with natural language and SQL back and forth is something that makes Duet AI for data practitioners incredibly powerful. All right, let's talk briefly about the no-code experience. Now, I understand many of you may be primarily GCP platform users, but with AppSheet, we have a lot of opportunity for colleagues or even yourselves to work and build sort of simple frontline, internal business line applications with a complete statement, right? So like from one statement, you can describe the app. This provides the ability to build the entire AppSheet app, including UI and everything you need in sort of one shot. And so you'll be able to use the prompt, describe what you want achieved, knowing what data is available, and it will generate the app for you. And so for many applications, I think we all recognize that building from scratch, from code, building an HTTP, REST API, et cetera, isn't necessary for many of the kind of day-to-day little applications we need throughout our businesses. And it's really that fast. All right, let's talk about security. And again, this is not something where we expect security professionals to go away. This is actually for security professionals to be more productive in their work, or to help people who are up-and-coming security professionals to be immediately more capable and more being able to contribute to a greater degree in their environments. So let's start with we're going to go ahead and jump and start to talk about what Intel does Mandiant have. And so I want to see the latest threat activity impacting my industry. So I'll check Mandiant Threat Intelligence. This is a tool that provides thousands and thousands of reports that can be looked through and searched and read. Each report is an incredibly detailed document. But if I'm looking for this APT43 sort of threat domain, I don't really want to look through 11,000 search results. So I can use Duet to summarize those top search results and let me understand really what is this thing about without having to go dig deep into each of these reports. So I can see the content, recognize what this is, what kind of exposure this might be providing my company to, and I can move on to another tool. In Chronicle. So in Chronicle, I've gotten some intel that we have this potential crypto mining exposure. And normally to conduct the search in Chronicle, I'd have to use a very verbose domain-specific language called UDM fields. There are many thousands of the kind of syntax tokens in this security search language to look for events in Chronicle. And so with Duet, I can use it to, I can use this to basically construct my search terms and find those events more quickly. And I can run that search and surface those events to determine what next steps I want to take without having to spend as much time constructing the query. Finally, once I know what some of the potential exposure is, I can switch to Security Command Center and see that we actually have some of the vulnerabilities in this crypto mining attack surfaced. So normally to understand this, I'd have to understand, I'd have to open the finding, I'd have to look at the specific details of the finding in the fields, and then I'd have to check the JSON representation of that vulnerability for even more finding details. But here with Duet, I can get a plain English summary. I don't know why I'm getting this, but that tells me essentially what is the nature of the event, including why there's an issue and what I can do about it. And finally, I can look at some of the I'm going to move to the graph here. So there's a graph representation of my cloud resources. This is a really rich drill down tool that I can go through the graph to find what sub-resource might be involved in this vulnerability. But Duet AI generates a summary of what can be vulnerable and what I can do about it, basically short-circuiting a longer investigative process for me to kind of drill down right to where the asset or the resource I need to manage differently is in that system. So let's talk about why Duet is an enterprise-ready system. And this is because it is built on the same principles of segmenting and isolating your data from other customer data the way we've built all GCP products, right? This is something you've heard Thomas mention point blank right away in the keynote. The data, such as the code context or the data schema context you're sending to Duet models, are never stored or persisted or used by Google in any sort of additional training way. We conform to a set of AI principles in the way we are building Duet, so that we put in things like safety checks in responses, meaning we are bringing some of Google's own AI principles around hate, et cetera. And so you cannot use Duet, for example, to write a script to generate sort of very hateful speech, for example. Now, we'll be allowing people to tune some of these checks over time, but this is part of what is built into the product today. It's kind of a word wall, so I might kind of go past this one, but this is really around how we are going to allow this to bring you the customized training respecting these same principles. Now, this isn't something we have today, but this would be the idea that as you're bringing your organization's own custom corpus of code, other information about other data sources, or even operational playbooks, that will all be unique to your organization and essentially managed within your own GCP perimeter environment through these sort of custom adapter layers. Let's talk a little bit about where we're going next. And again, this is actually sort of really just a scratch on the surface of all the things we have in mind to bring to Duet. So today in the assisted development, we've got, as I showed you, the code completion, license attribution, VS Code. JetBrains support is already out, available in early preview. The multi-turn chat is available as part of today's preview in VS Code. It will be coming soon to JetBrains. And then later this year, we're going to bring a set of rich admin controls. I'll explain this once. You'll see it in some of the other areas. But this is going to be how you enable access to certain Duet features for the workforce by role type, or maybe you want to turn on or off globally access to a certain Duet feature. That will all be part of the admin control system. For the operator, today again, it's that small but super valuable feature of summarizing the information you need to know where you need to know it. And again, I think this will persist as being one of Duet's most often used features, because it represents essentially the entirety of the platform's documentation and usage for every single cloud product already today. We'll be looking at more integrated experiences into the troubleshooting experience, and especially as we bring the ability to bring greater degrees of context around what's happening in your services and applications on the cloud to Duet to help be a code troubleshooter to determine root cause type problems more quickly. And then in the assisted data exploration, we have a lot going on with building models and using ML in the context of your data, right? So this is things like BQML. And being more helpful or informed about how to collaborate in building the ML with the ML. Now, this is not the kind of sci-fi one model building another from an LLM point of view. This is really taking the power of ML in the data and using Duet to help you build those applications and scenarios more effectively. Across the security products, we're looking to bring greater natural language search creation. So if you have a more complex scenario that you're trying to do research on, that you want to be able to type into a prompt, these tools will allow that. simpler natural language rule creation for ongoing monitoring, and then the ability to find and detect novel vulnerabilities in assured OSS packages. No-code and low-code, this will be sort of rolling out directly in AppSheet to many customers over the next few months. Interactive explanations can help essentially bring apps to make them more updatable. Right now, they're sort of the app creation phase, but there isn't the opportunity to iterate and refine that application. So that ability to iterate and derive either variants or improvements on existing applications is what we're looking for next. All right, so preview is available today. You should be able to find what you need to sign up for that through the blog post or through our web page. We've actually worked very hard over the last week to make this very expedited. If you had earlier been part of our Trusted Tester program, you know that we were letting only in sort of trickles of people at a time. So we hope to be opening this up over time much more widely. So we encourage you all to sign up. And in the products themselves, remember I talked a lot about how we've built a lot of user experience sort of polish into Duet today. That includes how to get your feedback. So we have things like when you get a SQL-generated sample, you can give us an immediate thumbs up, thumbs down. Did that work or did that not work? You can send us feedback about code responses, and we are looking at all of that. This is really going to be an ongoing collaboration. This is an emerging space. We all know that generative AI, as it is today, is still relatively new to the scene. We all know that things like hallucinations and imperfections in accuracy are going to be par for the course. But I can tell you, watching this over the last 3 to 6 months, this is changing so quickly that this is something you really want to integrate into your workflows today and begin to understand where this is applicable right now. And that way you are best set up to understand as it evolves how to be most effective with it as we continue to build sort of week by week and month by month improvements. So thank you all for coming. I hope to meet some of you later, and I hope that you get to enjoy trying out Duet over the next coming weeks. Thank you.